Let me start out by thanking everybody who submitted written testimony on this item and everyone who testified before this council today. I actually think we had some really great and constructive dialogue on this piece. And I also want to thank Commissioner Gonzalez and the mayor for their leadership in pulling this resolution together. Now, as is abundantly clear from the conversations we had this afternoon, this item is important because Portland is in the grips of a public health crisis unlike any we have seen in our city's 171-year-long history. In just a few short years, the scourge of fentanyl has transformed our city and has devastated a generation of Portlanders. For example, between 2019 and 2020, Oregon saw a 74% surge in fentanyl-related deaths. And in the last 8 months of 2023, more than 170 people in the Portland metro area have died of drug overdoses, and most of those drug overdoses were associated with fentanyl. To sum up our current situation, today, fentanyl is fueling our houseless crisis. Today, fentanyl is feeding our city's public safety crisis. And today, fentanyl is fraying the fabric which holds our city together. That must change. And the ordinance before us today is the beginning of the change that Portland so desperately needs. Now, as we all know, change is not easy, and there are several things that make fighting fentanyl particularly hard. First, as we've heard, fentanyl is up to 50 times more potent than heroin, and that potency makes fentanyl extremely addictive. Second, under current state law, this council does not have the authority to regulate the public consumption of fentanyl. Now, I think most Portlanders will be shocked to hear that. It's hard to believe, but it is true. It is ridiculous that this county has the authority to regulate the consumption of alcohol or cannabis in public spaces. However, Oregon state law does not give this council or any council in the state the power to regulate the consumption of fentanyl in public spaces like our sidewalks, our streets, our parks, and our public parking garages. That state of affairs is absurd, it is dangerous, it is political malpractice, and it must change. Now, there's a third dynamic which makes it challenging for Portland to turn the tide of our current fentanyl crisis. Portland needs more and better treatment services for our friends and neighbors who are currently struggling with fentanyl addiction. Put plainly, Portland needs more sobering beds, and Portland needs more treatment beds. The resolution before us today does at least two important things which will help Portland turn the tide in our current struggles with fentanyl. First, this resolution calls on the state legislature to give the city of Portland the authority to regulate the consumption of fentanyl in public spaces, like our sidewalks, like our parks, like our public garages. That is just plain common sense, and it's far past due for us to take, or for our state legislature to take that step. Second, the resolution before us today calls on the legislature to provide our partners at Multnomah County with the resources they need to provide Portlanders with an adequate number of sobering beds and an adequate number of drug treatment beds. Now, as I wrap up, let me be clear. The resolution before us today will not end Portland's fentanyl crisis. Instead, by passing this resolution, this council has identified and embraced a strategy which, if followed, can lead to the beginning of the end of Portland's fentanyl-induced nightmare, which is why I vote aye.